let's go ahead and give the update. Me having already completed the transmission, and we're talking about the consciousness and what had happened. And when we speak about spaces within time when this would have taken place in the rotational output of when that encoded memory starts to run its cycle, because that cycle is what keeps the that consciousness, which is the impact of the record, is what keeps it in its state of bed of consciousness. Now, that's what maintains its positioning within the universe in that portion of space. So when you speak about a collective consciousness, and you're speaking about people, and that's the system that they are run on, it would be that that type of system would always be in a deficit, because it takes a lot for a system that cannot generate to maintain a wave base for the external nodes that are connected to it, that are connected to this consciousness. It takes a lot to run that in the background. Now, so it's always functioning and running in a deficit. Without any type of wave, it would be within a 3 or 4 hour period, it would have already terminated 75% of what it holds, which is very quick, because you're speaking of is not a sustainable system, because it did not come from the working parts of what is connected to the whole of all that is within space. Is not of the natural, or is not of the natural order of space, so it cannot generate anything. So when you're speaking about a system that cannot generate anything, when it's severed from anything that's external, that is collective consciousness, it depletes rather quickly. Now, and those of you that were speaking to scientists, a few of you that were bought in. Let's say when everything started to cycle out, we were in 2022, and I mentioned a network that was coming through, even though I was not speaking about this. Now this is a different type of this is a different product or manufacturing within that system. So what I was speaking of, this here is because when you're speaking about, as I stated, this is the most important part. When you're speaking about a collective consciousness, it's always in a deficit, because it takes a lot to maintain that position within space that was created accidentally. It doesn't have a generator, or it's not self-regulated like that. So all of this power comes from external to it, because the initial impact cannot be recreated. How many times are you going to get hit in space? Is that how many times that impact going to happen? Not many. So this collective consciousness always runs on a deficit regarding any type of fire like that. Now, and this is very much equivalent to a fire. So, and they use, even when they're in their hibernation and dormancy because of what the core conduit would be within regarding that cycle of memory code. They're still exhausting they're still leaking and exhausting in energy. So they're always leaking. They're always exhausting in energy, even in stasis, even in hibernation. It doesn't matter. It's always something there's always just a deficit. Now, because they're with a collective consciousness, there are a lot of nodes on a non-regulated system that gets its pulse external to it, like that. It cannot generate its own pulse like that. So it continues, and when it gets in this formatted state, because it's formatted, coded within the atoms, that when it has to go down into that hibernation, and it sends that signal out to all of its connected parts, because you're speaking about a collective consciousness. When it gets into that, it still it will remove some of the debris in connected parts, like, because because it is the impact, it's the consciousness. So it will remove some of that which is not necessary, like that, from its system that isn't a regulatory one. Now, because this conscious does not need them to sustain it. It can't self-sustain, and they can't self-sustain, and it can't self-sustain it, an ant. But they just can't self-sustain. So not necessary. Not necessary. And so, because they're a part of a collective consciousness, it's always running on critically low energy banks. It's like before it's just, that's just what it is. So it drains rather quickly, and when you sever it from the greater of the cosmos that it can link to, it will, sometimes it could be at the point or the time period when it's past the point of recovery for the actual consciousness, or past the point of recovery for those that are connected to that consciousness, like that. And we'll be speaking about brain stems being the most affected. And that would be the most critical and most affected. That's because they're already in a catatonic state. So because without a baseline signal to maintain their internal synchronization, the units, like the people that are connected to this consciousness, if we're speaking about people with that example, when it sends the signal of distress, it drops them into hibernation, like that. It drops them into temporary hibernation, into a permanent hardware shutdown, if you're talking about space itself and this debris. And that system is like because the network links are going completely cold, that is outside of their consciousness that can only keep this and maintain it into a state of being, because it was created, the consciousness, from something external to it, and exploding the type of fuel that had, the type of fire that ignite that type of consciousness, and the breed that I guess this is the great awakening that I'm telling them. You're waiting for the awakening to come. Okay, here it is. Is that no? We've already known this. Okay, this is probably the first time hearing it spoken. Okay. Now, because I'm the one that do the work on it. So in the awakening, okay, there it is. Now, so it's very different when you sever that. Now, and because it's a system, it it's with the system in especially a system that was in how it became, it does not have any type of control over its own data bank like that. So, and it can like flatline. It could be neutralized so much that you could sever, but and then also it could be neutralized to a point of irrecoverability. And the thing with a collective consciousness is you don't have to focus on the unit, which it would be most important to focus on the unit. You could just send the energy through one of them. You could send it 5, but one of the nodes that are connected to the consciousness. Even when you're talking about space and then space dust, particle dust, it is residue. It could be generated through those particles, and it will, because it's a part of a collective consciousness, it will also impact the primary conduit to an extent slightly lesser than it would penetrate or have a powerful impact on the debris like that. So, and that's the same thing with humans, because they're connected to this consciousness. It would impact on them. If you're sending a signal or trying to get a pulse with this core, sending a signal through any of them, like that, it's going to reverberate through all of them like that. Just like when it sends the signal of distress and it goes silent and hibernating because it's trying to conserve or preserve, because it can't replicate that what brought it into being, and that amplified state that brought its consciousness and force that brought its consciousness into that type of formation. So when it's always in deficit of that's the deficit. Okay, but the debris cannot generate that. Just like with humans, they say the humans are the debris because they're connected. They're a part of a collective consciousness. This is the base of that consciousness. Now, because they're a part of a collective consciousness, obviously they don't have any independent abilities. Meaning, the fact that they can talk, the fact that they can walk, the fact that they exist, all of that is due to this. If we impact this enough to neutralize it, they would be neutralized. Because the force to impact this will be greater than the force of the debris that's around it. Now, and that can be, if that happens in space, for example, if something comes along, if something happens, and because this is on a time capsule, it coded within its atoms is the memory of that impact, and that memory of the impact is what keeps it being a consciousness. even though it can't generate the force of that impact to be an amplified consciousness. And because it's a collective consciousness, so it means that the collective debris around it is a part of that. And it takes a lot of power, force, fire to keep that in rotation and not. That's why it's go-to mechanism in the mechanism of its functioning is the flatlining, is the hibernation to preserve and conserve. And so people that are part of the collective consciousness, when it having whatever's going on in space, they flatline too, like that, despite their human experiences causing them to flatline or hibernate like that. So if something happens, in obviously because this consciousness has existed. Well past for its utility. Now, it's if something happens within space and it has an impact like that, now it could be anything. And if it's moved or shifted, and something happens and it moves or shifts it, or disrupts it disrupts its particle formation, it would be the people that are part of this collective consciousness. They would be within that ruin, because they're a part of this collective consciousness. So we'll be talking about mass effects on the most important, as I think, brain stems, neurology, and everything that causes them to function, because because they are in a catatonic functioning state. They're functioning catatonics, but the reason that they're functioning is because of a field external to what is impact happened. That does not have anything to do with them, but that's the closest that they can latch onto to be a part of any type of existence. So that's one way that a effect can happen. It can happen in space without just anything that happens that can affect it. That's the effect. Anything that is a part of that collective consciousness would be affected. It doesn't even have to affect if something affects the source node, they're done for. The particles that are held up around this impact is like it completes it, even if it does not complete the core, like that. And because the people are connected to this consciousness, okay, it'll affect them the way that it'll affect the residue, because they're not the core, they're not the consciousness. The consciousness is situated within space. Now, so if that happens, that type of impact, and because that has not happened, it ceases to be in its positional space, and they cease to be a part of that collective consciousness. Now, we can sense something of a great mimic or imitate, but we don't have to send it through space, because we know that they're a part of the collective consciousness. We just send it to one of them. I'll get all of them at once, because you're a part of a collective consciousness. You're a part of a system like that connects you to something that you don't have control of. It's outside of your so it's just you can just send energy strong enough and powerful enough, and it will spread throughout the system and all the collective parts that are a part of this collective consciousness. And there'll be a great neurological effect on them. And the core will receive that impact. Too, is that when there's a collective consciousness, that's not anything minor, because that means that with the collective consciousness, that means that everybody that's a part of that consciousness could be annihilated instantly, at once, if from something happening from in space, or just if it's, science is there you go, okay. It's gonna all of the consciousness, because they're a collective consciousness. They're not independent. Not an independent consciousness. So that's it. Is quite it's quite dangerous. It's quite dangerous because it's always running on empty. But it has a but it's a collective consciousness, which is a part of why it's always running on empty. It's like, is that, and the consciousness can't feed into it can't feed into them, because it's not a part of the greater whole of the system of everything. That's not how it came into fruition. So when the line is severed, what happens is that this consciousness, because even when it goes in hibernation to conserve, it's still just leaking whatever because it still has to, because it's a collective consciousness. So for the people that are a part of this collective consciousness, for them to be able to wake up and do and be okay, that means that there's always a deficit, because that takes energy, and they're a part of a collective consciousness. It takes energy just for them to move around, to think that they're thinking, to think that they're talking, to think that they're making independent decisions. That takes energy, and that's a 24-hour, 7-day a week, 365 days a year, like that. That's just like in space. It takes energy to keep the debris in its position of when the impact happened. So the conduit is always in deficit, like that. Okay, and then you add that the people that are part of this atomic makeup within their atoms is encoded with that system. This collective conscious is a part of that deficit. So it's like similar to like a static storage and an empty storage that has a continuous operational overhead. Okay, because it's a collective, because it's always, because they're connected to it, but it doesn't generate anything, so it's always running on empty. Now, so it's like a power consumption that's just the law of a collective network, is power consumption. So a hive mind is not a static battery cell, is an active distributed processing grid. So it's always on deficit. Now, so there's a continuous drain, like because to maintain a synchronized consciousness across millions of billions of remote nodes, meaning people that are part of that collective consciousness, it is going to require a lot of non-stop expenditure of energy. So is So it's just like, because it has to keep them in sync, because they're a part of a collective conscience. So that keeping them synchronized, because they're a part of the collective conscience, keeping them in sync and synchronized, it spends energy all the time. It's just wasting, but it runs on empty because it can't generate. It's not a part of the total of space. So to keep them even synchronized is a part of its exhaust, because when it starts to flatline, they become desynchronized, or it will desynchronize them to load them off of it, because it's becoming flatline, or it silences them like that, more catatonic, but because it's trying to preserve like that and conserve, and they can't bring anything into it, and it can't bring anything into them. It only can only has what it takes to keep them synchronized as a consciousness, and it's always running on that deficit there. So it's like, it is something. And because it's neutralized now, because you have to, by severing its parts now, and that will be by because it's severed, you see how and it will re-anchor itself, and you'll see when you're speaking about people that are connected to this consciousness, what that severing, because it was a energy replica, not to the impact of what caused the consciousness to come into being, but to the impact that can sustain it like that and get it out of its flatline state. The people that are part of this consciousness, when you speak about the debris that's a part of the consciousness, if you do, and when you're dealing with the core of the impact in the actual core of the wreckage, those particles, they drift off. They are removed from their position that has been held throughout the time period of this wreckage first happening. So they're released from their positioning. Now, with people and sending an impact through them, it only takes one, okay, and it's going to reverberate through all of them, or impacting the core and transmitting an energy there is going to impact the people. Now, that go into that catatonic, like, they're always catatonic, but go into that like silence. Okay, it affects them, but it affects them neurologically, because that's being a part of a collective consciousness. And if you're a human, you're neurologically connected like that. Your brain, not your heart, like there's your brain like that. So sending a dose of energy to enough to amplify the core, it would obviously affect, because it's part of a collective conscious. So if it affects one, it affects mine. Okay, so it would obviously affect them, but neurologically, because that's why they can be a part of the collective consciousness, and that's why they are a part of the collective consciousness, because a human is neurologically connected to the impact and to the consciousness, to that wreckage. Now, so it causes one to wonder how they recover from. I didn't recover from the amp that I set out. Okay, how are you gonna recover from that? Okay, because my focus wasn't on them. My focus was on the could do it here. Okay, so it's like, it's sitting out just enough power to get a regenerative response. So that power is going to be more forceful than what a human can handle. Okay, but it not so forceful to destroy, like they could do it, but because nothing would keep it from its leakage and from running in a deficit, because it's a collective consciousness, and a collective consciousness has particle structures that are connected to it. And when you translate that into people, a collective consciousness, the primary node, the people would be there, was connected to it. So how does one monitor such things as when you're talking about response to that type of energy? Well, don't have to know, because they won't know where it came from. And I care about reserving and preserving what's in space, not what's connected to it. And that includes humans. I'm not a psychologist. I'm a physicist, so it's quite different. So that type of thermodynamic digital shockwave is like being the high power transmission that it was, is to amplify the hive mind core. It and it being a very sensitive, centralized receiver, because remember, this is the consciousness was the impact point. And it's a very sensitive receiver because it processes real-time telemetry through thousands of or millions or billions of nodes that are connected to this consciousness. So that type of sudden field manipulation of me severing that impacts that perimeter, and it reverberates directly back to everything that's connected to it. So we're speaking about a multi-wave transmission, and impacted by a torrent of energy. And because remember, the consciousness is the point of impact of this collision, so it has to have that type of torrent, destabilizing feed that mimics that impact that it is coded with that amplifies it like that. So it is destabilizing it. Now, the psychologists, you're going to have a lot of patience because neuroscience turn to the board. It's like, there you go. Okay. Because it's going to be part of that. Okay, that's where the patients come from. Okay. That's how neurophysics. Okay. Brain still. You have to keep it in its position there because of the type of operational vulnerability that it has, because with it being a consciousness and the type of network model that it is a very it's a very delicate situation there. Why do y'all call me in for the delicate situations? Well, because I'm that scientist that can handle those type of delicate situations effortlessly. Now, even when because you're talking about wave mechanics and this type of necessity regarding this consciousness that should not have been, is just how it maintains. You have to, things are maintained within space the way that they were introduced there. And if they were introduced outside of the natural order, the maintaining is quite different, but it responds to what is not natural, like the wave transmissions. So that's it. Now, because I don't have to do the work of human analysis, and because I'm not a psychologist, I don't have to do the work of neuroscience, even though neurophysics, that's one of my expertise also. But because I don't have to, especially with this here, I don't have to focus on the aftermath and how with humans. That's in the physicists that are listening. That's where they pick that up there. Now, but this would be the cause. Now, and they would deal with those effects and pat me on the back for a job well done, like that. So is that. Now, that's what it is. And this is the most important thing with regard to humans. And also, because with space it's quite simplified, the particles within this debris that this debris is made of, it just goes and continues to function. That's left, it just goes and continues to function as normal. It will be within its maintenance of stasis, like that. Okay. Now, is in that type of stillness. Now, with humans, in functioning as normal, it would be what normal is for them. It would be because they would still be a part of the collective consciousness. And the important thing is that you have to remember that what normal is for them, they'll be normal like normal, but it's not normal, but it's like functioning normal. But then this consciousness is gonna go into its flat line again, because it's always gonna be on deficit. But it's within a cycled timeline cycle that is cycled within its atoms when it starts to be completely depleted, and it'll send out that signal of, okay, catatonic lineup, become more catatonic, because I'm becoming catatonic like that. Okay, so they'll be silent again, because they have to. It has to conserve and preserve energy, so they be silent. Something in their life can be causing that, or whatever they'll be in those situations, reflected to cause this. This is an energy storing energy. But it's really the signal that this consciousness has sent out, because it's what it's time coded to do. So remember, they're always going to be on that cycle. Even if they start acting normal again, okay, then they're going to go back on that cycle again within the time frame. And these time frames can be very short now because of the amount of time, which has been a very long time. I'm not going to give out those numbers and figures. I'm trying to talk over the actual work. So in watching what I say, because it's a part of my greater work, and because the information is very sensitive, because you can just zap them at any second. Now, you're talking about collective consciousness. Okay. So one of you being here is like all of you. Okay. Scientific joke. Okay, Okay, so let's see. Because you have to remember that, and this is the important part that we could take from this. And then we're going to leave this alone because it's done now. They call me in to do the dirty work. Okay, So this is what you have to remember, that these time periods of the primary core going into its catatonic state so that it can preserve the energy, a catatonic state that the debris is always in. So similar to catatonic state, because we're speaking about space. Now, people that are part of this collective consciousness, they're in a catatonic state. Okay, they're just functioning. Now, this timeline of that happening is shorter and shorter. It is shorter and shorter of the being able to be normal, and then normal within that collective consciousness, and then becoming catatonic, hypernate. So it's going to be shorter and shorter, because it's happening shorter and shorter in space with this consciousness. So I'm going to say this. The next time you bring me in because you want me to zap it and be done with it. Because now that I've experienced it, I guess y'all had to have me experience for me to get a good grip on it, to be able to analyze it and know what to do with it. Well, I made the decision. To this is amplified a little bit so I can see something about it, but within space. But it's the next decision I'm going to make. It's okay. It serves no purpose. When you're talking about something that is just functioning on deficit, okay, let's go ahead and just put it out of damn misery. Okay, that. Everything does not have to be studied or preserved or conserved. Then, when you're in angelic karma, you need to, Melissa, you need to experience the people that are connected to this collective consciousness, so you can get more information about it. Yeah, I did. And that was my answer. Could you just put it out as misery, Because when you're speaking about a collective consciousness, it's just one, your meaning that is just one, and you just can reverberate through all of them. Just one thing like that. So that's not good. A collective consciousness is not something that you want to be connected to, because what happens to one happens to all, and it's out of one's control what happens, because the conductor is space, the actual consciousness. So if something happens there, it happens here on earth and to those that are connected to this consciousness. We're not speaking of when people say, well, we're a collective consciousness, we're connected. Not that. We're speaking about a collective consciousness. Where you're connected to a system that it only takes one, like, it's just can be, that's highly dangerous. Because it's highly dangerous because it can do it itself, can be, it's time coded. It can be timed out, can be coded in it. It could be like, it's, okay, if you're connected to the collective consciousness. Okay, so all the ones connected to this consciousness, they're going to, and it could just be coded within that time period to happen. Now, or with science, you just send something to the energy to the conduit, and flatline it, and everything connected to the consciousness will be flatlined too. Or just send the energy to its nodes, which we talk about space respect, speaking about the debris of the wreckage, and it's going to affect those that are connected to the consciousness on earth. Or send something to the people that are part of this collective consciousness. It doesn't have to be all of them. It's just because they're connected as a collective consciousness, the energy will reverberate through that within that system and affect them all to different degrees, but they'll all be affected. It's send enough power to them, it'll be at the same degree. Because they're a collective consciousness, like connected collective consciousness instead of one consciousness or one individual consciousness. They're a collective consciousness. Now, is that so? Severing them from it to amplify it. Severing, because you can't get through to them. You can't bring them out of hibernation because they're just catatonic. Any type of experience they're having regarding life, it's not even an experience. So they can't control anything. You could knock. Hello, because they're already catatonic. So when this starts to go down into its catatonic state to preserve energy, it's already sent out the signal to them to do the same. So you have to sever them instead of trying to get through them to amplify. You have to sever them, remove them to amplify it, and it'll send out the signal that partially amplifies them, because to run them on the collective system is a deficit. To have them on the collective system or part of the collective consciousness is a deficit for the primary node. Hell, they're not bringing in anything. They only could do what the consciousness sends out the signal for them to do. And it's always regarding bringing it a type of fire that was generated outside of them too, because it comes from whatever came through to create the impact like that. So that's what you're speaking of. Now, why you all, and I'm speaking to the science, want to keep this is my question, what is the reason wanting to keep this into its positional point within space, knowing something within space that is not of the natural order. Now, and that comes from an impact, and that impact created this consciousness that has no utility, is not self-regulated, it cannot self-generate, it cannot maintain itself. It is time-coded to lapse. Now, in the debris around it from the wreckage, is the a part of that is the collected network when we're speaking about space. So what is the reason? We haven't figured out. We know what it is. We know what it's about. Okay, so what is the reason to continue to revitalize such a non-important, small aspect of the entire everything that is. Now, because when you speak about the people and them being connected to this consciousness, they're hard to deal with. You have to get jumper cables to get them, because they're already catatonic. So imagine them going, okay, it's like, when it's time for the core to preserve energy and they go silent through whatever experience they have, and the core doesn't care what happens, it's go silent. And then, so you can't, it's like, so what scientifically is the reason to continue that there, and what's connected to it not even serving a purpose? Meaning, there's no purpose. There's no reason. Because even with severing severing them, so we're speaking about severing the debris from the primary node. When that's not happening, when you don't come in and sever it so that this can be amplified, now this primary node within 12 hours is done for. Okay. And there is no amplifying it in anything that's connected to it within space, or anything that's connected consciously within it either, is that. So and because this is going to be a continuous cycle as long as this is amplified. The more and now it's having to be externally amplified, because it's always having to be, and it's not being able to be when they go dormant, because this sends out the transmission to go dormant, and then they start like dominoes going dormant. Everything connected to the consciousness goes dormant. Now, let's talk about space, the debris, and the neurons and the protons that are fired there, they go dormant, because this is conserving energy, it's actually transmission. So when it goes dormant, this is the norm of a cycle. And when you're speaking about to amplify the primary node, it's going to be still a short-lived cycle, because the debris around the impact point, when you're speaking about space, it cannot bring in a wave of replicated fire that created the impact point that amplified it like that. Now, and then it just became a complete drain, because it's a part of a collective having that debris, the parts like so, and then people that are part of that collective concept. So it's like always, it's a drain, just a drain. Now, so when you speak about people in Earth that are part of this consciousness, when this node starts to, and then they're a part of the consciousness, they have to pull from human energy. So because they're of human nature, they may try to siphon energy. They can become silent so that they can siphon energy and feed off energy like that. Now, they can't do that anymore, because we only allowed it to happen so that Melissa can get me, so that I can get an idea of what the effect this consciousness has on people when it's going into its hibernated state that has been a continued state in time state since it's being come across and placed on the scientific desk to be observed, which has been for a long while. So now that I've observed how it associates itself with people, and they can't bring that from what isn't connected to their conscious in, and it doesn't, it's depleted on keeping them synchronized within the consciousness, and it's always in deficit. So what in the hell is it all for? Or was it just for me to see it and then neutralize it? Or them? Okay, it's like, which one was it? I decided to neutralize it so I could just tell you what happened. How the gig is up. Okay, so now we see. So it's like, why is my question. Other than for me, what this observing in action? Give my thoughts on it. What was it for? So this began with a question to me regarding my observation and then my approach to it. Now it's ending with a question to you all, the scientists, of why. What was it? What was it? What is it being maintained for? Like, why?